Last year at GenCon, we couldn't find a sexy sci-fi lady. So this year at GenCon, we're going to ask people what is science fiction to better understand the ladies that we're looking for.
I don't know.
I have no earthly idea. Never really thought of it.
Yeah?
I guess it's one of those you know it when you see it.
Well, it's kind of just like all the monsters, and I mean, I really don't know how to define science fiction. Everybody has their own definition, but I just like the monsters, the strange, weird things about it, and the blood and gore.
I think it's like Jules Verne and like H.G. Wells, so I think it's, sci-fi stuff.
Anything that has to do with like outer space, fantasy, kind of something supernatural, basically.
Pretty much anything that's either not real or probably fantasy. Also, it can be part of like the futuristic. But sometimes that's not. Sometimes I think of futuristic as fantasy because we don't know what's coming up in the future. But that'd probably be my definition of it.
Pretty much anything having to do with science and fiction. Anything where it's like pushing the boundaries of scientific discovery and stuff like that. Star Trek, out in space, Transformers, robot aliens. All the good stuff. Fantasy's also awesome. But don't mix the two. No gunpowder in my fantasy games. No steampunk.
Pretty much anything that revolves around like space, robots, futuristic, big old monsters, stuff like that.
Science fiction. I don't really know too much about science fiction. I live in the real world. Gotham City. There's a lot of crime that I fight. But science fiction is good for television. And computers. And definitely YouTube.
For a Gen Con person, the definition of science fiction is anything that is not what your parents liked growing up. It's the Star Wars, it's the Doctor Who, it's the lasers, it's the swords, it's the orcs. It's, that counterculture for the nerd.
To me, it's just anything that is like, to me, just kind of like futuristic, spacey stuff. Like, because for me, there's a difference between mythological and spacey. But
things that kind of like could be real, but also have kind of a fiction kind of aspect of it.
Something that takes place probably in the future, or the not too distant future, and kind of changes. It's based on technology and science that we don't understand yet, so it doesn't necessarily have to be spaceships and things like that, but it definitely involves kind of science that we haven't explored, that we don't fully understand. So you're kind of like fantasy, you're discovering a world that someone created. In science fiction, you're discovering a world that maybe we feel like we actually could create in the future.
I guess aliens and advanced technology that doesn't exist.
All right.
That would be what I qualify as science fiction.
All right. Thank you.
Science fiction, I guess I would have to say, would have to be like anything to do with outer space or robotic stuff that's out of this world, but like could take place near, but is more sciencey and more out there and just makes you feel like you want to go out to the stars. That's my definition of science fiction.
Mostly anything that's usually not quite what we're capable of now, scientifically speaking, like, teleportation, faster light travel, things that might be possible that haven't actually, our technology hasn't caught up to some, like Star Trek, Star Wars, things like that.
that's a hard question.
Yeah.
I agree.
For me, I think mostly anything that's not normal, outer spacey, especially stuff like that. That's kind of my sci-fi.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
More the abnormal that you don't see every day.
Okay, there's a quote. I want to say it's Arthur C. Clarke. I could be wrong. With anything that's sufficiently futuristic seems magical. Say kind of anything that seems like magic but is science-based. Final answer.
Examining a social problem in an environment where it won't actually offend anybody. Like, Star Trek.
Right.
Specifically, the original series, May this be your last battlefield, with the half black, half white people.
Well, it's just like expanding the possibilities of like science today, I guess.
I mean, I've seen like a few episodes of Firefly. I know people are gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, you haven't watched it," but
Okay.
I've seen a few.
You've seen a few
I need to
episodes. That's
get
all that
into
matters.
it. Yeah, I've seen a few. I'm trying to get into it. It's just time. Time has been a big issue for me. But definition of science, that was a good one. Exploring.
Yeah, I don't know anything specific, just that.
I watched a bit of Defiance, and that was interesting. I enjoyed like the future. I'm just talking about shows right now, but
Right, it's okay.
The future, like in St. Louis, and the arch is all like kind of collapsed. I'm an architecture major, so that's why I'm talking about architecture. But I really enjoy like taking like objects in the present and then like kind of breaking them down. Like the arch is really awesome in that show. I know.
Yeah, and like having future possibilities, like things that you would imagine the future would be like.
Oh man, this is like a loaded question because there's so much different styles.
Right.
To me, science fiction is. Oh god. It's like I would go Star Trek because I always go back to the basis of like TNG, because the idea that you have a set of rules, but you kind of set your own rules right off the bat. Oh man. That's an incredible question. I would just say simply look to Gene Roddenberry. Everything that science fiction I base on Gene. So as cheesy as that answer is, Gene Roddenberry created it in my opinion.
I've been reading science fiction for about 45 years almost, and science fiction is most often a metaphor that deals with problems that are hard to talk about now. You get the science fiction of the 50s with a lot of the alien invasion standing in for a lot of the communist anxiety. And now, especially with something now with like a lot of zombie films. A lot of zombie films are very much about the kind of lack of control people feel about their lives, and the idea that things that you thought were good can all of a sudden be bad. And the kind of anxiety about all of the medical things like AIDS and Ebola and all of that can come out. So science fiction really takes a lot of things that are very difficult to get your mind around and really helps people see it in a different way. I mean, I'm a big fan of Asimov and Heinlein and Ellis and a lot of the really old, hard science fiction people. So I really think that there's a good case for science in science fiction. But I also like, things like Madeleine L'Engle's Wrinkle in Time and Thomas Dish and Robert Silverberg, a lot of the more social science fiction writers. So, I mean, I'm not saying that you have to have, rockets that are technically accurate and you're going to swing around Jupiter in just the right hyperbolic arc to make it an enjoyable fiction. But, I think there are good places for both of those. And to me, a lot of it is about just the opportunity and the excitement. And when I read David Brin's Uplift novels, they were just I both liked his story and his people, but also the way that he created his worlds and the aliens. So it's all about really kind of opportunities to explore, and also there's the whole aspect of you're always writing about the time you're in, and kind of metaphorically addressing the things that are, well, hopefully you're addressing things that are troubling and difficult for people, because I think that's where you get into some very interesting literature.
I agree with that guy. 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 That guy.
We are experiencing some technical difficulties right now. I apologize for any inconvenience. Please select any one of the following videos at this time.